Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about Loch Ness, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is almost Halloween and Mischief Night, which we don't really do here in the South. You know what? This is the news with Elizabeth Cooper and JC Schweingrouber. Where are you? Come on. Here he is.
I'm right here. How's everyone doing tonight?
I think everybody's doing great. It has cooled off, but I was just mentioning Mischief Night. Do you remember Hallows Eve going out and making any messes, like toilet papering somebody's trees? You do. I see it in your face. What did you do?
Well, man, tell some stories, tell some tales out of school. Yeah, I toilet papered some trees, a couple of houses, soaped some windows, not just on the houses, but on cars. I was appropriate with my egging, right? I didn't egg anyone's cars just had a little fun. Yeah, Halloween was always kind of a cool time growing up. And I remember this is so funny. So one Halloween we go out just like knocking on doors and run, like you knock and hide, right? So we were out doing that, and a friend of mine growing up, his name was Kevin. He had just broken his middle finger. So he had to have a splint on his middle finger, and he's walking around, has to hold it upright. Well, he got caught while the rest of us hid at this house, and this guy was pissed because apparently people had done that like 5 times at his house already that night. And then Kevin gets caught and turns around, and it's like he's giving him the bird. Kevin was a champ. He took it for the rest of us. He didn't squeal. He got trouble, but good for him. He had a great time too until he got caught. I don't know what to tell you, but I had a great time. Did you do anything like that?
No, I never did anything like that. I know a couple of my brother's friends, I'm pretty sure, when he was the appropriate age of between 16 and 18, the house was egged a couple of times. There was some toilet paper in the trees, but you mentioned egging how do you egg with etiquette? How do you egg appropriately?
Well, you don't egg someone's car, for example, right?
Okay.
Because you don't want to mess the paint up.
Right.
If it's someone deserving, they might get some peppered across their driveway. Maybe if they have a brick house right next to the door, where it comes down. Just stuff like that. I'm not saying I would go egg everybody. I'm just saying it's happened. I might have been there. But I caused no property damage. And probably the biggest reason I had some etiquette with that is I knew the severity of the ass kicking I would get when I got home if I got caught. So there was no destruction of property involved. But no, I had a good time. So the question is, do you encourage your kids on Halloween? Do you give them like, hey, go trick or treat in the neighborhood? Here's a couple rolls of toilet paper just in case. Wink and nod.
No. The only thing I've ever done with my kids is that my kids were pretty little, and I thought I was being funny. Probably had a glass of wine or two, maybe part of the issue there. But I thought I was being hilarious. So I got Easter eggs, and I said, come on, kids, let's go egg the neighbors. So I threw a bunch of Easter eggs in their yard, and then we were like, so did you get egg last night? And they're like, well, there's a bunch of Easter eggs in my yard. I don't know why. What does that mean? And I'm like, I don't know. No clue. That's about it. I was a good girl. For Mischief Night, I was a good girl.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get into those other times too. Now, girl, it was a lot of fun. I always enjoyed Halloween. Now, I haven't done anything in a long time. Like I haven't been to a Halloween party in quite a long time. Last time I did the whole Jason Voorhees thing, and that was kind of cool. But no, I haven't done much for Halloween these years. But I do enjoy a good creepy movie now and again. I watched one earlier today. Actually, I took a little time this morning. I got up early enough to watch a movie, and I watched one called Abandoned on Netflix.
Never heard of it. Is
Kind of
it
weird.
an older movie? Is it newer?
Newer,
Okay.
but I think it was kind of set back like in the 70s. And I watched another one. It was cheap to rent on Amazon called Wineville. And just because it was about wine, I thought, hey, that'd be cool. It looked like it was a throwback to the 70s, but it was a little gross. So I didn't really care much for it. But yeah, I'll break out the traditional horror films and Salem's Lot, The Fog, things like that. I enjoy it.
Nice. I never really got into Halloween movies. I mean, the only thing I really ever saw was Halloween, the original Jamie Lee Curtis Halloween.
Yeah.
And The Blob, but that would always come on like summertime on PBS. And I remember sitting there watching that, Shadows from the Dark Side. But then again, that was not Halloween. It was just like year round. I just watched it just because my mother or my sister was watching it. But yeah, I never really got into the horror films. But what if you were to dress up today to go out trick-or-treating and flashback, right? If you were a kid, but you know what you know today, what would your costume be?
I would totally do Jack Nicholson from The Shining. Of course, he got the axe, you know, and the jacket, so he kind of disheveled hair and look half drunk. So that'd be hard to pull off because he didn't shave much either for that role. Freddy Krueger, maybe.
Really?
Yeah, the old red and black sweater. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, those are good choices. You know, I think for me, I remember this one Halloween, I was totally offended because I got the wrong reaction from my costume. But it was the last time in New Jersey that I went trick-or-treating, really the last time of my childhood that I went trick-or-treating. I was 13, and it was right before we moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. And, you know, I didn't have a costume. I wasn't going to go trick-or-treating. At that day and time, it was sort of like, oh, I'm getting a little too old. Teenagers don't really trick-or-treat in my area. But at the last minute, decided to go. And I went as a black cat. So I had like this bodysuit on. I had these little shorts on with, you know, stockings. And then I had made a tail. So I had the tail and the ears. And I kept getting catcalled from these boys that would drive by. And I was like mortified. It was totally not mentally, I wasn't where my body was at the time.
Yeah, okay.
I just thought I was, you know, just a little black kitten. Like that's all. And I guess I didn't look like just a sweet little kitten. But yeah,
yeah, that's an interesting age, being like right on the edge of innocence and not, you know, like your mind is one place, but you know, like 6 months later, you're going to be totally different. But, you know, I was watching this, the original It, and kind of reminded me, like at the end, like all those kids, you know, like whoever would have thought like the last time you went out to play with your friends, or that when you went out Halloween trick-or-treating, it was going to be your last time. No, like you never thought about that. And now it's like when you, like years later, you look back, it's like, God, I wished, you know, if you'd known that was going to be your last time doing something like that, would you done something different, you know? I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about that. But like when I watch those horror movies for Halloween, like I'm not big into like crazy, creepy stuff or gory stuff. Like the original It or Salem's Lot or something like that, it's plenty scary for me. You know, I don't really like all that, like the demonic. Yeah, that's a little much. I'm not going to sit here and be The Exorcist. But especially not alone in the dark. No way. No way.
Poltergeist was good.
Yeah, that was good.
Shining.
The Shining was really good. Did you see it was made for TV, The Stand? It was based off that Stephen King book.
Never saw that one. Never saw, you know, and the ones that quite honestly my kids have seen, because my ex-husband is like a Mickey Mouse fan. So they've seen all the Disney that are supposed to be horror or whatever. And
Mhm.
the one with, God, people are going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe she doesn't know this. She's got 5 kids, but Jack Skeleton, Jack something.
Yeah, yeah, The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right, that one, and then I think that there's another one, but there's all these kids dressed up as these characters, and if it's Disney, I mean, if you're not Cinderella or I know Tiara, I'm like about that speed, like that's the last princess I know. You know, I see Rapunzel and I'm like, "Oh, it's Rapunzel." And then the kids are like, "No, it's Tangled." I'm like, "But it's Rapunzel, right?" I mean,
Uh,
I'm not a Disney person. I've taken the kids on Disney cruises before. They're great to keep the kids occupied and the kids love them, but it's just not like I'm not one of those people that would be like, "Hey honey, how about you and I go to Disney?" I'm not that person. I
yeah, I know Disney bought Star Wars, but like that movie, The Nightmare Before Christmas, last year was the first time I'd ever seen that movie. I'm so late to the game on everything. I just watched one of those Despicable Me's for the first time in the last 6 months.
I have seen those. All right, I
Yeah,
have seen those. I don't get some of the other ones. I mean, slightly forced against my will to go see the Emoji Movie. I saw that. I really wasted 2 hours of my life. I could have skipped that, but
uh,
yeah. So anyway, yeah. I just not a. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I have so many friends where they get married and they honeymoon at Disney, and I'm not like meaning to trash Disney or anything, which I am. I totally am. I'm stomping on their head, but I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like, I'd rather go to a clothing optional resort in the Bahamas somewhere than go to Disney without my kids, right?
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want to go to Disney. Period. Like I know people that go there every year, adults that go there, and their kids are like grown teenagers, and they go anyway. And I'm like, I don't. Just not for me. Not for me. I mean, even though I grew up like a Star Wars fan, I'm not going out there for anything Star Wars. I don't even care. Like the furthest I'm traveling for anything Disney might be the movie theater if it looks remotely entertaining, and then maybe because I remember I haven't been to a movie in probably 6 months. So, but I'm kind of looking forward to Halloween, but I'll be glad when it's over, and I will certainly be glad when next Tuesday is over, and everybody can take their signs down, and the commercials will stop hopefully, and the phone calls, the robocalls.
I'll tell you what, I went in to early vote because I'm out of town. I actually come back in town on the 5th, on election day, 5th of November. And I just thought, I don't want to miss my opportunity to vote. So I went ahead and I got it done, right? Instead of like worrying about getting stuck in traffic and coming home to be able to vote sometime before 7 p.m. on election day.
Yeah.
There were no lines here. Now, my brother and sister, they also went to go vote. So my brother is in Spartanburg, Greenville area of South Carolina. They had a 2-hour wait. My sister, however, is up in Pennsylvania. And she went over there today to vote. And she said that they had 2 voting computers, one of which was down. She said it was like a 2.5-hour wait just
Wow.
to be able to vote. And she said, and when I got there, there really weren't many people there. It was more of this technical issue that they had going on. And she said, so then they opened up a table of paper ballots and they had police officers guarding that table. So I guess if the computers went down again, that was their backup, was to be able to fill out a paper ballot and cast it. But I walked right in and walked right out. It took me maybe 5 minutes. And they're saying that most of Georgia, a lot of Georgia has already pre-voted, voted early.
Good.
What are you seeing
Good.
in your area? Because you're in Virginia.
Yeah, I voted early. I voted a week and a half ago. And when I went in, one of the poll workers was a lady that I know. And of course, it wasn't busy. I was in and out in like 5 minutes. And We have a paper ballot, and then we fill it out, and then we put it in the paper counter, like the vote counter. So we don't have the electronic. And I don't know about there, but I always like it when I go up to vote, they check my ID, which is awesome. Like, so anyway, I voted, and I asked her, I said, has it been busy? And she said, yeah, like even a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, it has been busy. People have been showing up early to vote, and they've seen more turnout than they did in 2020, and certainly more than in 2022 because it was an off year. So like you don't get nearly as many people out voting. And but she said it had been like crazy busy, and that's good. People aren't waiting around. I think people, and we've talked about this on the show, like they're wildly different candidates. Like if you haven't made up your mind, if you're one of those fence sitters, like what the hell are you waiting on? Like there's no similarity between the two. Like I don't know how anybody would be like on the fence. Like I don't know who I'm voting for. Like, yeah, okay. Like, I just don't.
I can understand if you're on the fence because you don't like either one of them.
But yeah, that's true.
They are so wildly polary. Wow, making up words here like George W. Because they're such polar opposites that I can understand not liking who we have to vote for. But what do you think about the Amish votes? That's a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one on me. Yeah, I mean, I imagine if they come out to vote, they're probably going to lean Trump. I don't know though. He can be quite abrasive, and past like divorced a couple times, and I don't know if that's going to have an impact. But then you look at the policies of the other side, and it's like, I mean, how much more do you want your food to go up? You know,
right?
I don't know.
Extremely conservative. Just as a community, the Amish people are extremely conservative. So,
but evangelicals love Trump. I mean, which is kind of odd to say. I mean, he's been divorced. He's been very abrasive. God knows he's gotten around, right? So, do you mind dropping some bad language? I mean, he's a New York construction worker. But I saw an event earlier today where they were like on stage praying for him. It was like a faith convention. Actually, down in your neck of the woods, down in Georgia.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and he was going to go to I think tonight, University of Georgia.
Yeah.
Event there, and to sell out Madison Square Garden, and then have over 100 and some thousand people outside that wanted in. It's like, I don't know. Even the people on CNN were like saying, "This is a movement. We've never seen this."
Right.
I think there's the Van Joneses of the world on CNN and MSNBC. Some of these guys are already thrown in the towel.
It's very interesting. It certainly is very interesting to see, just what's happening with what the media is covering. I'm one of these people where I really want to understand everyone's views and point of views. So I'll listen to all kinds of things. I grew up in a Democratic family, and that's just what we were. We lived in New Jersey. We always voted Democratic. And grew up listening to NPR and all that kind of stuff. And, my father, for the past couple of years, he has voted Republican. And I was on the phone with him not too long ago, and he said, the Democratic Party did me wrong. They aren't what they're supposed to be and what they sold me on back in the day of when, that really was the best option. That was the more financially conservative, where the Republicans were just spending money like crazy.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party came in and they were a little bit more liberal so that they weren't so strict on every little thing. And we're talking about the 1950s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was an interesting thought that my father shared. And he said, they left us out to dry, all of us old Democrats.
Yeah. I mean, it's other people around here that they say they never left the party left them.
Right.
And about it, Trump used to be a Democrat. Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. And when they started going hard left, I mean, Obama sort of talked a little middle of the road when he ran the first time, and then governed liberally to the left. And then, of course, he lost his supermajority after 2 years and that huge red wave. But, a lot of people around here feel the same way. I grew up in a Democrat family, too. My dad always voted Democrat, but before he passed away, he cast his first Republican vote.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So, but growing up, like, yeah, in this part of the country, a lot of with the coal industry and energy sector out here, there's a lot of Democrats that were union and,
yeah.
But the entire place used to be deep blue, and now it is about as deep red as you can get, because when you go that hard left, and I think one of the things that caused that shift was when you're kind of in the middle of the Bible Belt or on the buckle of the Bible Belt, and you say people cling to their Bibles and their guns, that alienated an entire segment of this country. And I don't think they realized how powerful that statement was. And then when you come around to the next election, and it was the deplorables, I don't think they understood how damning that was to alienating people. And then they have the nerve to go bitch about the divisiveness in the country. I know I have Democrat neighbors that live across the street, friendly as can be, nice as can be, live a conservative life. They probably tend to vote Democrat. I don't know if they're voting Democrat this year, because I did see a yard sign for a local that's Republican. So
Wow.
ballot candidate. Hey, maybe they're fed up with it too. And this probably would be the first time they've voted Democrat in their life.
I think bringing everything home over the past 3.5 years of seeing the increase in prices. When things go up at the gas pump, obviously it's going to increase everywhere, right? But we really feel it. It wasn't like a 50-cent increase. It wasn't $1.50. It was multiple dollars.
It's like 100.
A carton of eggs, milk, butter, just the basics. And when you inflate the basics to such a gigantic amount that it's going to affect every single person in this country, you then can't stand there and go, oh, but isn't this great? We're going to make it, so much more greater. It's I don't know. I think that is the biggest issue, is that it touched everybody of the past 3.5 years. Everybody's been touched, and it hasn't been in a positive way. It's a negative way.
Exactly. And one of the things, like I said, I'll be glad when Tuesday's over, but one of the things I'm looking forward to is, I don't want to look too far in the future, but the next time we have a presidential election, I hope it's going to be a lot more calm. I would love to see like Glenn Youngkin from Virginia run, who's very, reasonable, rational, thoughtful, not provocative. And then maybe the Democrats will get smart and not run somebody from the hard left. You just can't govern there. You can't run there. And, for Kamala Harris is a horrible candidate, and nobody voted for her in a primary. When she did run, nobody liked her then. But, to try to be a change candidate, like I'm going to change things in day one when you've already been in there for 4 years, that's an argument. I mean, I don't think Donald Trump could pull that argument off if he paid people. It's like,
right.
You just start off with.
It's total silliness. I feel like we're in a Telemundo, it's Spanish opera, soap opera. It's like, it's too much. I agree. I could use less drama. But let's talk about the financial situation that we've been seeing. We have been reporting for the past couple of years. Oh, the markets are just all over the place. There's not a lot of stability within much of anything. Now we're here at the 2024 election, just days away. What are you seeing in the markets?
I've seen last week was a little choppy, so I was able to put some money to work with that downslide last week. But there are a lot of tailwinds going into this market going forward. So I think the markets, it probably might, you never know, but from just my observation, we're likely to rally going into the end of the year, which would be awesome. People need that. I think the market is probably telegraphing a Trump win um, to some degree. So I guess there's some people talking today. Was the rally today a Trump rally? I don't know if I would call it that, but I think down ballot, the GOP is likely to take the Senate. So if you have gridlock and government can't do anything, that's probably a good thing. Because anytime government does anything, they screw it up. So markets generally like gridlock, and I think they see it like at least the Republicans taking the Senate, maybe probably holding the House, not by much. So I think that's probably what we're seeing, and it will be choppy the rest of the month, maybe to some degree, especially if we get a little closer to the election. People at that last minute nervous Nelly kind of trading, and but I'm not telling anybody to get out. Just kind of keep cash handy to put in, and once we get past the election, we're in the middle of earnings season, so it just started. So we're seeing some good earnings already, and Tesla blew their numbers out of the water, and they rallied up by 20-some%. Some of the other sectors out there, I think, the banking sector and financials are looking pretty good, which is, kind of more of a Trump sector, I guess, if you want to say which sectors might favor who. So, really what we're just focusing on is let's get the election over with and its earnings. And we're back to normal in a way that bad news is bad news and good news is good news. And that's important. So once the election's over, then the markets have clarity. We'll see where businesses and companies go. But yeah, we've talked over the last couple of years about, hey, all this rising inflation and the choppiness after COVID and supply chain issues and all these issues that we've had, right? War in Ukraine and then the Middle East, and with Israel's not going to run the price of oil up over 100. All these possible red swans, but those things are always out there. And I just remind people that were nervous 2 years ago about all this stuff. Hey, it's 2 years later. We're still here. We're doing pretty good. So that's one reason to kind of keep investing and not be afraid of things that could happen, because anything could happen, but a lot of good stuff happens too. More good than bad.
Do you know of anyone who is holding off on investing or has pulled out money to be able to play the odds of this election? Because I know the bookies are all over the place. And of course, our media plays into it with the day-to-day, oh, this one's up by this 0.5% and this one's up by 2%. And a lot of it feeds back into the bookies where people are betting on this election, especially this one.
I know some people that at the second half of the year going into the election, one of the things that were in their strategies was to take some gains that they had in previous positions. So you're never hurting yourself when you make money, and then just leaving that money sitting in cash to wait. So I've seen a cash buildup, but I've not seen anybody liquidating everything and like doing that whole panic and fear kind of thing.
Right.
But just taking some gains and kind of hanging on to some cash until you see an opportunity. And that's what I've seen. So there's a lot of cash on the sidelines. And, if we get favorable policies, I think that there's a pretty good amount of it that will probably come off the sidelines after the election. But you got to keep in mind, we're going into the end of the year. So a lot of people don't want to trigger tax events. So you'll probably still see some on the sideline until after the new year. So people don't have to worry about if they need to take a gain or a loss, they'll do what they need to do later toward the end of the year. But trading volumes, when you get the last month, especially the last couple of weeks, it's just, you can hear crickets chirping. It's not much. I'll be honest, like I hardly do any. The only time I talk to clients during the holidays is I'm just calling them to wish them a happy holiday, because I never hear from anybody, because it's just that time of year, nobody's doing anything.
Is there any grumbling about certain sectors that are gearing up for a rally, or how do I say this? In the news, and it seems to be across platforms from CNN to Fox to NBC to ABC, all of them, they seem to be echoing a Trump win. Now, who knows if that's true or not, but I believe that there are certain companies that would rally if Kamala wins. And there are certain companies in certain sectors that would rally if Trump wins. Since there's so much Trump talk right now, are there any sectors that you can kind of tell are getting ready for a rally? Or is that just impossible to see?
It's really sort of impossible to see, but what the first thing that comes to mind though that I will be watching are like midstream energy companies, because you can look at your big energy companies that are out there, and of course, the whole the black swan thing that we were worried about with Israel bombing Iran, would they hit those oil fields or anything like that, or nuclear facilities? Well, they didn't. So the worry about something like that happening, and they easily could have. I mean, they could have probably taken out half the oil in Iran in that one little flyby, but they didn't. So that showed kind of caution, and like that was the tit for tat kind of thing. So let's cool our jets now. And so oil dropped a lot today. I don't know if you guys noticed that, but it dropped pretty significantly. So I guess gearing up for like that drill baby drill. Who are those mid cap and small cap downstream type companies that are involved in oil, natural gas, coal, those other types of energies, whether it be like hydrogen, nuclear, especially with AI coming on strong, and companies that are going to need to have their own energy facilities basically to be able to run all the AI, and nuclear looks like the best option right now for those. I would be looking at some of those, not those big caps like Exxon and Chevron and all that, but I would be looking at some of those downstream type companies going into that opportunity over the next year or two.
Yeah, I'm looking at the price of oil right now. So it looks like our high was 68.76, and today, right now, is actually let's see. We had a significant drop around noon, which brought it down to 67.36. Yeah,
that was like a 5% drop today, which was a percentage-wise a pretty big drop.
Yeah.
Now, will it go any lower? I don't know. I mean, it's sort of stalled out on the selling side, but we'll see where it goes the next few days. What Iran does, if they do anything to retaliate, who knows? They were kind of given the exit ramp to cool things down with what Israel didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see where that goes, but looking down the road with that whole drill baby drill kind of mentality, I would be looking at opportunities in some of those master limited partnerships that are in the oil and natural gas that are downstream.
Okay.
Could be gains, could be some pretty significant dividends if they get increase their revenues significantly. So I'm always looking for great dividend payers, and a lot of them are in the energy sector.
Well, while we're speaking about election finances, we do have Ian. He goes by Ian Stevens, but Stefanovich, sorry, Ian. He says nobody wants to make any kind of financial moves in an active election, whether it's putting something in a money market or investing in projects. Everyone's basically saying everybody's waiting until after the election, after November 5th. So if somebody has money that they want to go ahead and invest, do you suggest, I know that you're a financial planner, so I'm kind of assuming that maybe you would suggest to go ahead and do it and buy low, but do you suggest that they hold on to it until after the election, or go ahead and invest?
Well, I would never really kind of like force somebody to go in, even though I manage their money for them. If they're uncomfortable, then I'm not going to do anything that's going to make them uncomfortable. So if they're nervous about the election and want to wait, I would still encourage them to open the account, because if you don't, the likelihood that you're going to do it 2 weeks from now is much less. And park it in a money market, because you can get 4.7% on your cash right now. So I would do that temporarily, and then have that discussion again about what the needs were. But you can't guarantee the market's going to drop a whole lot either. You never know the highs or lows. So the important thing is to find the strategy. And if you're buying an individual stock, research it enough to know whether you're paying over. You don't want to overpay for it, but pay a fair price. Mm-hmm. And if it's a particular company you have in mind, and you're not married to that company, take a look and see what companies compete with it in the same sector. Maybe there's another one that's cheaper, or more trading closer to fair value. So that's really the goal that you have, is to pay a fair value for something and hold it long term. So yeah, if it's a mutual fund, then obviously dollar cost average and things like that. Not worry about whether you're buying high or low. Just get a good average price. But yeah, that would be a conversation that put in cash, get your interest now. Let's wait a couple of months to the end of the year, first of the year. Let's talk a little bit about the long-term strategy and needs, and let's put together a strategy that's going to be appropriate to get you what you need for the risk that you're willing to take, and avoid the risk you're not willing to take. So that's a big part of that discussion. But really good question, good point, Ian. Appreciate that.
So I have a question for you about new tax laws for investments for 2025. When are those usually released? When do you know about those? Because I'd really like to ask you about those sometime in the future to see if there's anything changing.
Yeah, well, I think one thing depends on whether Congress renews some of the things that were passed in that last tax law,
Mm-hmm.
because they need to renew those Trump tax cuts at some point. Otherwise, we're going to see a huge tax increase. So that's one thing. I think the expiration on some of the capital gains and dividend taxes that were readjusted, as well as the income taxes, I think those sunset after 2025.
Okay.
So it'll revert back to the old. But we're going to see some more discussion. I imagine if we get a new Congress and Senate, if there's a Republican sweep, within the first month, we're going to be hearing talks about extending those taxes, adjusting some of the capital gains and dividend taxes. What taxes are going to get cut? Like we're talking about, like tips and overtime, and people who work in getting tax credits, who like are caregivers and families and things like that help out. So a lot of that's going to change. I have been looking at some articles that are talking a little bit about some of the things that have been tossed around, but you don't really know. So as we get a little bit closer to the new year, we might get a little bit more clarity from some of the leaders of Congress as to what they might want to put in future legislation to change or not change.
Okay.
But that's a great. So maybe early in, if you have me back on early next year, we can look at some of those discussions that are going on and talk about what might benefit people and what might not until the legislation passes.
Okay. All right. And then small businesses. We were talking in the green room for a minute about investments for small businesses. What are you seeing there?
Well, I wrote an article. I've been working on it through the weekend, and about why small businesses should open up an investment account for themselves. Because we always talk about individuals, like always individuals investing. We talk about, rolling over 401ks, not leaving those things behind. And I have a really interesting stat here. I printed off for that. But I wanted to talk about like why, a small business owner is focused, and you're a small business owner, and so am I. And, we're focused on day-to-day operations a lot of times, quarterly cash flows, all these things that kind of keep us occupied. So over the years, I've met a lot of small business owners, and part of my job, I guess, is to work with business owners to help them towards long-term success of their business. So a lot of people, when they talk to me, they think I just work with individuals, but you have to work with businesses too, especially small business owners. They're the lifeblood of our entire economy, right, and our workforce. So we need to make sure that our small businesses have put their idle funds to work, build financial resilience, increase profitability beyond their traditional revenue streams. So there's nothing to say that if you own a pizzeria, that your only income stream has to come from pizza and pasta. You can have investments that actually provide you other income. One of the things I thought about financial resilience was, remember COVID, how many small businesses went under. But if you can have an investment account in the name of your business, there are some tax benefits that we could talk about down the road. But any idle cash you have, you can maximize that and look at those dividend payers, some of those things we've talked about before, to have an additional income stream or emergency income stream when times are bad. Same thing with nonprofits; they operate just like businesses as well. So having whether it's a church or a local nonprofit that wanted to set up what they call an endowment, investment account, when tithes are low at church, or things aren't coming in, you're not getting the donations that you need in lean times, like when inflation sucks and nobody has enough money to normally, put what they normally would into a nonprofit or a charity. Having those investment accounts that you can have a revenue stream or have growing if you don't need it can absolutely be vital to small businesses and small owners. Diversifies your income stream. You can actually use your business for retirement planning, not just with SEPs and simple IRAs, but you can actually invest that up and build up a reliable nest egg for when the time comes for you through that. You can maintain liquidity with part of that investing for your business if you need the cash. And another thing that people don't think about, if you are wanting to sell your business down the road, if you have an investment account that's tied to that business and it's growing, you have added significant valuation to your business and chances of long-term success for the person who's considering buying it. If I was going to buy a restaurant, I wouldn't buy it just the restaurant as is. But because you never know, if margins are thin, businesses go under.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is a load of food to come through that ruins your business. But if you have an investment account and that business is set up for long-term success and other income, well, that business suddenly got more valuable. It's more likely to succeed. So keep those things in mind if you're a small business owner. If you don't have an investment account for your business and you want to get started, think about it right now. Get started today. Talk to your advisor and go over these reasons why you should be having an account like that and what strategy would work best for you and your specific business.
That's awesome advice and information. Thank you so much for sharing that. What article was that you got most of that information so that people can go back and reread that?
Well, actually, I wrote it. So it's my article. And if you go to my Facebook page, just look up JC Schweingrouber, and I have it posted there. It's also on my LinkedIn page. And if you like what you read there on some of these articles that I post, and if you think it's going to help somebody feel free and share these. So, I try to get that information out there for free and as far and wide as I can to help as many people as I can. And one other thing I did want to mention, though, Liz, was that going into the end of the year, we have a jobs number that's coming out this week. We have another inflation tape coming later this week. So I know a lot of people that's been switching jobs over the last couple of years. And it's possible that you forget about your 401k when you go to a new job. So I want to remind people to remember those old 401ks and consider rolling those over into your own traditional IRA. Or if you don't have one, set one up and roll it over. I found this right here. This is really interesting. A study by a fintech company called Capitalize found that there were 24.3 million forgotten 401k accounts that are holding 1.35 trillion as of May of 2021, with another 2.8 million lost accounts added each year. And those lost accounts are people that had 401ks and can't remember where they're at or where they're at now. And they can't track them down. So that's like lost money that they have. There's almost $60 billion in lost 401k money floating around out there right now that people cannot find that they have saved. So do not forget those 401ks. That's a lot of money left on the table. And I always like that set it and forget it sort of thing. So if you have it, make sure you know where it's at and then forget it. Let your advisor handle it and then let it grow. But, for crying out loud, I know somebody personally that has about 60,000 in a 401k they cannot find right now.
Wow.
And for 3 years.
What is that website that you've mentioned before to be able to find your 401k?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'll get that. But if you just do a Google search on finding my old 401k or my lost 401k, a lot of times you go to your state treasurer's office. So if you worked in Georgia and you had that 401k, you don't know where it's at, just go to the state treasurer's office and look for lost funds. There should be a division through the Secretary of Treasurer's office where you can find those old 401ks.
So I just found this this .com. It's meat, as in nice to meet you, not the edible meat. Meatbeagle.com, and I've never used it, so this isn't a plug for them or anything. Even though I am plugging them, it's saying that you can find all your 401ks, 403bs, 457s. So this might be a good place to start, meetbeagle.com.
Yeah, I would just a word of caution on some of those, because there's quite a few websites out there that will say they offer that. When you go through that, you can tell them what state. It'll list like your name, like lost assets or forgotten assets, and it could be something you owed $25 or $50 or something like that. But once you go so far, they actually ask for personalized information like your social security number and date of birth. So I would be cautious if it's not like a Secretary of State's office where you're finding that, to not just throw that out there to any site without doing some prep, a little prep work, a little investigation on them first.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. That does really help. And there's a lot, I mean, that's a lot of money. So there's a lot of people that have not collected their 401k. So if you've earned 401k through a corporation, that money cannot evaporate. They have to hold on to that, correct?
They do. Well, if it's under $1,000, that company has the option. Usually they'll just send you a check minus your 20% tax withholding if it's under 1,000. If it's over that, they can request under a certain amount. They can request that you roll it over within a certain number of days, or they will cash you out and send you a check. But they'll ask that you roll it over. Now that company, say for example, let's say Fidelity or Schwab holds that 401k. They're the administrator of it. And that company that you worked for, and say you just left it there and never bothered again, and that company goes out of business a few years later. This is what happened to somebody I know. And so there's nobody to pay that administrator. So that administrator might move that 401k plan somewhere else to another firm and let that firm try to contact those people so they can roll that over and get that business. So at that point, it sort of turns out like a bill collector. Like your credit card and you forgot about it and it's canceled, and then they call you, and then if you don't pay it, then they sell that debt to somebody else who starts calling, and then somebody else. And that's how those 401ks get passed around and get lost until eventually there's nowhere to go. So if you've moved, they can't find you, your phone number's changed, that sort of thing. That's exactly what happened. And now years later, they can't find out where the assets are. Because it got moved around to different places. You just have to either go through your Secretary of State's office if it finally landed there as unclaimed assets, or just hopefully you get lucky and call someplace and say, "Hey, is my 401k here?" And and that's the real pain of it when you lose it, and it's like a needle in a haystack.
Wow.
And I would be glad to do that job for somebody, even my clients. But I can't call up and have him tell me their business, because I'm not them. So unless it's that person calling, they don't work with anybody else. Even if I've got all their information and handle their money, they only talk to that person directly. So always remember those things and keep those in mind. That's why it's important to roll those over. There's some things to consider before you roll over, like the cost. Is it cheaper to keep it in the 401k? More cost efficient versus what you have available and not available, that sort of thing. So there's a talk to have with your advisor about that. But I kind of always default to it's better to have it in your own hands and know where it's at than risk losing it down the road.
Well, yeah, for sure. Definitely. Well, thank you for that. And this has been, again, you're always educating us with different things that we really need to know that we just don't have the financial literacy or knowledge to know. And with that, I just want to ask real quickly, what are some of the best places to get the basics of financial literacy?
There's one website that's really good called advisorpedia.com. But if you go to say any of the stock exchanges websites like S&P or Dow Jones or NASDAQ, they have educational tools on there. Same thing with the Charles Schwab website. There's always kind of like client education, like showing you how to research mutual funds and stocks. So always just take advantage of some of those sites. Videos. I love videos. So YouTube, Fidelity has, and Schwab, Vanguard, they all have their own channels. So you can go there and get like daily rundowns, or some investing 101 stuff off some of those. Dave Ramsey's another good place to look for investing 101.
Yes, he is. He's extremely informative, and he's been around for many years.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, his advice really helped. My first husband paid off, that mortgage in half the time, and worked really hard to do so. But it's nice when it's gone, and you own that house outright. That's a nice thing, nice feeling. But JC, I want to thank you so much for your time with us, and let's do another news real quick, or real soon.
Yeah, I'll be back. I'll be in Frankfurt during Election Day next Tuesday, so I'll be out of town too. I'll be back on Wednesday, so anytime you need, let me know.
Thank you so much. All right, well, have a wonderful evening.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. That is JC at vistafrontpartners.com. His information has been scrolling on the bottom, so if you'd like to contact him, even if you have just $500 that you would like to make it work for you, go ahead and give him a call. Phone number is 859-750-5881 for Vista Front Partners and JC Schweingrouber. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We are blessed. You are blessed. Mwah. I love you, and stay tuned for another great show. That was awesome.